holidays. I'm Chris McNamara, founder and CEO of Pathway CTM, as many of you know. If this is the only one that you've joined, then fair enough. Well done. But just to say from me, well done for turning up to a webinar in your holidays again. So it's really, really good that you're doing that. I'm really excited about today because it's a bit of basically how we've been working over the last 3 weeks over COVID-19. We've been doing daily webinars, 2 till 3, Monday to Thursday. Have been all about employability skills. So we've had like Pret, Financial Times, the Co-op, cancer research on this week. And then Fridays, we're kickstarting it with Hannah because I want to keep it a little bit different. And it doesn't all have to be about employability skills, but I just want to interview Hannah, find out about how she got to where she is at the moment, and try and link that back to what we're trying to achieve as young people in terms of thinking, right, where do I want to go and how can I maybe get a bit of inspiration or insight out of Hannah's story, because it's a pretty cool one. Hannah, I put your Twitter and Instagram up there. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm Hannah J. Wilkes on Twitter and Instagram.
And you've got quite a few followers on Twitter as well. That's definitely building.
I know. I feel like on Twitter as well, it's like, as a sort of journalist, that's kind of where you live. I like Instagram, but I just feel like it's more personal stuff. Yeah, whereas but you can tell it's out of season and there's no sport happening, because I realised today I can't remember when I last tweeted anything, whereas usually it's fairly constant. So yeah,
definitely. And so Hannah, I'll let you introduce yourself now briefly, then I'll come into more detail as we go along. But we've obviously got a photo of you there in the Sky Sports studio. So a bit of an introduction from you about what you're doing at the moment would be great.
Yeah, so my name is Hannah Wilkes. I am a reporter and presenter at Sky Sports. And I work across a whole host actually of Sky Sports and platforms. So my main role is that I work in one of the many production teams in sport, and in that I'm still a reporter, a presenter, but my team, we kind of, the big team covers everything, and I dip into lots of those sports. So that's NFL, as you can see there, netball. We have a lot of like niche sports, like one-off sports, which I'll probably talk about in a bit more detail later. But those vary from everything. We do like 10-pin bowling event a year, and then there might be some equestrian sports, and we've done gymnastics a few times, and the team also covers all the darts. So I work at the darts every Christmas, and more tends to be behind the scenes for darts, but it's great fun. We also used to do tennis, which we don't do anymore. And what else do we do? Boxing, rugby union and rugby league are now all part of our team. So yes, I'm part of this huge team, and then within that I sort of hop around a little bit, reporting on various sports, specifically really sort of the NFL and netball are my two big ones. And then in addition to that, I'm part of a small little group within there that we are focusing a lot on women's sports content. So telling the stories of athletes that you don't necessarily get to hear about too much, or just women doing incredible things. So that's been the sort of most recent project, which only actually kicked off properly about a month or two ago. So then obviously the lockdown has kind of made that one quite challenging. But yeah, what's it been like?
What's it been like over lockdown for a Sky Sports presenter? What do you do?
That was the question I was asking myself for the first couple of weeks. I was like, what do I do? So the first kind of couple of weeks, actually, it was a real learning curve for everyone, and it was like everyone in all walks of life and every job. No one knew what this meant or how long term this was going to be. So actually, I spent the first couple of weeks. I used to work on our kids show that we used to do called Sky Sports Game Changers. So I used to present on that and be a producer on that. And when it looked like the schools were closing, we were like, great time to get all that content back out. So I actually spent some time doing the admin stuff, going through the archive and getting all that stuff back out. But once we sort of settled into this and realized, okay, this is the new normal now, and we need to find ways to bring content to our customers and to, keep Sky Sports out there and making new things. With this women in sports sort of umbrella, I was like, all these female athletes that we are really desperate to try and get are sat at home doing nothing. And now through things like Zoom, you can record these, the audio and video is pretty good as long as everyone's got a stable enough Wi-Fi connection. So we've started a weekly strand that goes on YouTube called Check-In. So the first one we checked in with Johanna Konta, British tennis #1. And then last week I spoke to a snowboarder called Katie Ormerod about her journey and her story. And she's really interesting because she's only about 22 and she's already had a really varied career and broken loads of records. Earlier this week, I spoke to Jamie Chadwick, who is a British racing driver, and she's incredible. And then we've got some really cool ones lined up as well. So next week, we're talking to Lucy Bronze, the footballer. and also I think hopefully a big name netballer, but I don't want to curse that one because that one feels like the one that might go away. So yeah, actually, it's taken a while to get used to, but I'm kind of back in the flow of getting. Oh, spoke to the Downey sisters as well, a couple of gymnasts. So getting back into the thing of getting in touch with people, researching them, doing the interviews, and then a producer I work with is kind of putting them all together. So actually, we've kind of got a little bit of a rhythm going, which has been good.
And that's check-in, is it, on YouTube?
Yeah, so if you go on the Sky Sports YouTube, they go live every Monday. So I think the one with the Downey sisters, who are great, Becky and Ellie, that went live on Monday. And then this coming Monday will be the one with Jamie, the racing driver.
Amazing.
It's quite cool actually. It's nice. It's when you've worked in an industry for a long time, seeing it completely turned on its head and finding ways to still do something new and do something that people are going to enjoy. It's been quite enjoyable actually.
Okay, good. Well, brilliant. Thanks for that brief intro. We'll get into the detail in a second. Students, just in case you haven't been on a webinar before, basically like this is a little bit of a unique webinar where it's just pretty much asking Hannah different questions. So you don't need to sort of wait to ask your question at all. And you can ask your questions via the Q&A box that you've got if you're on the PC or Mac. You can find at the top or the bottom of your page the Q&A box. You can basically just type in your questions there and we'll get to them. If you want to say anything that's not a question, use the chat box. If we ask you any questions, like I've already done with Ashley and Chimney. And actually, Hannah, you can see the chat box and Q&A as well. And then if you do want to ask Hannah any question and actually speak to her, put your hand up and I'll let you speak. It's quite easy. I'll just unmute you. So pretty chilled for Friday. Quite a nice thing for us all to be doing, I think. And without further ado, Hannah, let's just see you in action, okay? So this might be the moment that you've got to watch yourself. I'm sure you're used to doing it.
I still hate it.
Our reporter Hannah Wilkes is there for us.
It is a huge day of Super League netball. It's semi-finals day. We started the season in January with 10 teams. We're down to 4. And by the end of the day, we will have our 2 finalists. Here at the University of Warwick, it's first place finishers from the regular season Wasps up against 4th place Loughborough Lightning. Wasps are hoping to do what's never been done before and win the Super League title for the 3rd year in a row. Someone who's hoping that her team can stop them firmly in their tracks is Director of Netball at Loughborough Lightning, Sarah Bayman. Sarah, first of all, we had such a tight Super League season this year. How thrilled are you to have made it to the Final 4?
Yeah, massively. It came down to the last day of the season and I think nobody was quite sure who was going to make top 4, and now we're in it, we want to go one step further.
There's a lot of history between these two teams. The last 2 years, Lightning have lost to Wasps in the grand final. How much do you want to make an amends here today?
I mean, there's a little bit of that. We've also talked about making new history for Lightning and this group kind of taking ownership of what we do. But we're kind of pleased to play Wasps in the semi-final because one way or another that story is going to disappear after today. And yeah, hopefully we can get one over.
Certainly promises to be an excellent afternoon of netball. Do join us from 4:45 on Sky Sports Mix and Sky Sports Action for Wasps against Loughborough Lightning, followed by Team Bath against Manchester Thunder.
That is so cool. Oh, there we go. We don't have to watch that again, Hannah. Hannah, by the way, like when you do that, do you get? I always see like TV presenters, etc. Do you get nervous before you're about to go live?
Yeah, it's a weird one. I think you do, but I think it depends how you use the energy. So I'm the kind of person that I'm not necessarily like nervous in the build up, but I can sense a sort of tension with myself. What I tend to find is that I'll be about to do something and I'll be fine, I'll be calm. When you know it's about 10 seconds to you, all of a sudden you go, oh my goodness, dry mouth. And then I get through it. It's almost like a performance thing. And then the second I finish, I tend to realize, oh my God, and I'll be shaking. And not so much with things like you see like that, because I've done that quite a lot, but when it's something new, especially, or the first time we've done something for a while, so I imagine when we actually get back out and sport happens again, I'll be a quivering wreck. But yeah, I think I'm quite fortunate in that I can use that energy in quite a positive way, and then the second thing I have to do I often find harder, because I'll just like we'll go into detail, but there was a thing I did last year that was kind of like a big new thing, and like the titles roll and you do the intro and then you kind of throw to the first bit of video, and it's in that 30-second video that you're like, oh my goodness, oh my goodness, oh my goodness, and you're like, oh no, I have to go again. And that's when it gets more nerve-wracking.
It is a buzz. It's a buzz, isn't it? Yeah.
This is the thing, when you know, it like any job, it can be hard, it has its challenges, and every now and again you think, oh my goodness, there must be something else I want to do, there must be. And then there is just nothing that compares to the buzz of live telly, because literally anything can happen, anything can go wrong. It can be you going wrong, but you just don't know what's going to happen. So you're kind of in this constant sort of alert state that just makes it really, really good fun. It's great.
And we can see you here on Super Sunday with the likes of Jamie Redknapp. That's a pretty cool photo, right?
This is one of those photos that when I was picking the ones to send to you, I was like, obviously I'm going to pick the ones that make me look really cool. And here I'm clearly making Jamie Redknapp laugh. This was actually a few years ago when we did Game Changers, our kids show, which I was lucky enough to kind of work on all the way through its life, and ended up presenting, which was literally at the time like dream come true.
Wow.
And this was one of the early shows that I presented, and it was one of the first days where I felt like an actual TV presenter. Like I had a nice coat on and I had the poppy on because it was in November, and we went onto the set and did this silly game with them, and everyone was so lovely. So yeah, it was a really cool one, that one.
That's so cool. And I've got a question here actually already. Do you find on camera bloopers funny or embarrassing? I mean, have you had any yourself, I wonder, Hannah? And how'd you deal with them?
Yeah, I can't think of. You have to laugh, and that's one thing I've learned. Like, it used to be when I first started, if I was doing something live and it went a bit wrong, or I stumbled over my words, which happens. If you think, you're in conversation with your friend, not every word that comes out of your mouth is going to be perfectly formed and eloquent and make a lot of sense. It's just not human nature. But when you're doing live TV, that feels like 1,000 times worse when there's no words coming out of your mouth, or if you get something slightly wrong. And I used to find it mortifying, but the more I do, I find if you laugh off, if you acknowledge the mistake and move on, then people respect you a lot for it. I always find bloopers funny. Like, I always used to like putting together little reels of, when we did our end of series shows for Game Changers, and my dear colleagues would find all the ones of me messing up like the same line 7 times in a row to put in rather than the one where you nail it. But no, I think you have to laugh. They're good fun.
And we just got Nicole's put her hand up already. I'm just going to unmute you, Nicole, and see if you can ask kind of anything you want to ask. If you did do that, I'm just trying to unmute you now. There we go. Nicole, over to you.
Hi, sorry, that was actually an accident, but just to ask the question, do you need to know about, do you need to have a past of journalism to get into presenting?
That's a really good question. Hi, Nicole. It depends a little bit on the kind of presenting that you want to do. Sports or news presenting, yes, you're going to need some sort of journalism background or qualification, and that's changed quite a lot in the time that I've been in the industry. So when I sort of started, it was a real mix, and people came through. People had left school at 18 and just gone to work. Quite often, a lot of the older presenters that you see nowadays, and the ones that are kind of actually more maybe retired more recently, or the ones that are the older presenters now, quite a lot of them did start working for like local newspapers and work their way up that way, which will still be the case in future. But a lot of people now, if they've done a broadcast journalism diploma or masters or something like that. So I know when I first started, for example, it wasn't a requirement as such, maybe, that you had that background if you wanted a job at Sky Sports News. But now it is the case that you need to be studying journalism or have a journalism qualification. And that's just for multiple reasons. It's to make sure that the application process is fair, that everyone's coming from a nice mix of backgrounds, and also that everyone's got the sort of basic skills, really.
Okay. Thanks, Nicole. Well done for asking that. And Hannah, just before we go on to your stories, I'm really interested to see it. Did you do this especially for us?
Yeah, I've done this before, actually.
Okay.
But when we were chatting about me coming on, Chris, and you kind of said, oh, on your LinkedIn, it looks like such a neat journey all at Sky. And I was like, yeah, on paper, it looks like a really neat journey. But the reality is quite wiggly and quite different. So here you kind of got to the university where I did student TV, and then I got my work experience at Sky. And then the things I've highlighted in yellow are basically what you would see on my CV or my LinkedIn profile. So I was a production junior, which basically meant I made a lot of tea for people and worked every hour of the day, 7 days a week. Then I was a junior assistant producer, which meant I was doing basic production, so cutting little montages, and I did that, and helping run galleries, and I did that across a whole range of sports. So the things in orange coming off there are the sports I worked on at Sky. So they're all quite niche. So as a production junior, I worked across all sports as a runner. Basically, a runner is what they kind of often called. And then junior assistant producer, I worked on some real niche sports. And the advantage of that was that there are less people working on those sports, so you get to do more straight away.
Hannah, we've got a question here just on Formula One. Have you ever worked in Formula One?
Yes, when I was a production junior, is when Sky first got the rights to Formula One. And when they first started, they used to do the F1 show, which is like a magazine show every Friday. And I was the runner for that. And I almost completely lost my mind the first week it was live, because quite casually at the end of recording, the producer went to me, "Oh, Hannah, will you just walk Damon back to his car?" As in Damon Hill.
Wow.
And I'm a Formula One fan.
Wow.
So I kind of had this really awkward moment. I walked him back to his car and I just didn't stop talking. I just kept being like, "So what about this? What about this?" And just kept making benign small talk, and the poor guy was trying to get in his car. But yeah, so I know a few of the F1 guys, and they're a really great bunch, and a lot of the guys that work on it. And I've done cross paths with Natalie Pinkham quite a few times over the years, and I have quite well. So yeah,
wow.
So really cool.
Brilliant. So I'll let you continue. We've got questions coming in, but it would be good to go through this.
I think some of these will kind of, if I whiz through these, it might answer some of the questions. So then, Game Changers. They worked on Game Changers, which was starting off. It was a live Saturday morning kids show, and I was like the most junior assistant producer on that team. So I was doing everything from making features to organising the audience to making props and doing all sorts. And then during that time as well, there's a couple of hours there. During the first year of Game Changers is when I studied for my sports journalism diploma. And I was lucky enough to be able to do that through Sky. So yes, as well as working full time, and it was full on full time, like 70, 80 hours a week kind of full time. I also was studying for my sports journalism diploma and did that at the same time. And I also...
Oh, go on, no, carry on.
I was going to say, and also that year I screen tested for Sky Sports News, I think twice, and got rejected both times. But it's important.
Wow, that's so interesting. By the way, the diploma, so why are you doing a diploma here, Hannah? Like, did you have to do it, or did you want to do it?
I wanted to do it because there are so many different routes in sports journalism and sports broadcasting, and anyone you look at that you admire will have a completely different career trajectory. And it was a sort of a change of times as well, and I just kind of felt that the opportunity was there to do it, and it was going to be something that would kind of make sure that I had those skills, I had the knowledge. A lot of what that diploma was actually was Ofcom rules and regulations, so the things you can and can't do, say, feature, etc. on television, and a lot of the legal issues as well that you, especially if you're working in news, you have to be really aware of. And that ranges from everything to, if you're reporting on a court case, the things you can and can't say when you're reporting on it, to how you talk about something someone else has said, a real range of topics. And I did find that by having that diploma, it kind of gave you a confidence as well that, you know, I am a trained journalist, I can do this, I know what I'm doing. And it's those, uni was great, and I got a real broad set of skills and all the rest of it, and working at Sky was great already in terms of developing my production skills. But knowing that I had that bit of paper that says that I am a journalist, I think it gives you an authority as well in what is a very competitive market.
Okay, that's really good. Thank you. Please do continue, then we'll come on to some of the questions. Yeah,
so then after a couple of years of just being an assistant producer on Game Changers, the person who was reporting on the show left for a new opportunity. So I got to become a reporter. And that led to a couple of other opportunities doing different sports. You will see there bowling reporter, and I do mean 10-pin bowling, which has, strangely enough, given me some of the best experiences of my career. And show jumping as well is on there, and I started doing some online presenting in my free time and using my holiday days as well, just to get those skills up and get those live hours and that experience, because you can't learn how to do it and how to deal with everything without just putting the hours in. And especially in the UK, it's quite different, I think, say if you're a sports broadcaster in America, because it's such a huge country and there's all these local stations, there's more opportunities to sort of develop when you're starting out, and let's be honest, are a bit rubbish. But here there's not that. So doing on.
And you said that, Hannah, that was because somebody was off sick or somebody left, and then you had your opportunity at Game Changers.
Yeah. And so I
just wonder with that, was it between you or somebody else, or was it always you, because you're what sort of things were you doing to make sure that it was right opportunity, right time, right place, all that sort of stuff?
It was being very vocal, I think, about what I wanted to do. Because when I first started, even when I did my work experience at Sky, you get so many mixed messages. There's people like, oh, don't tell people you want to be a presenter because I'll never take you seriously because everyone says that who walks in here. And then other people will be like, no, tell them what you want to do, because if people don't know, I think it's almost a common misconception that they'll go, oh, you look like you can string a sentence together, you can be on TV now. That's not how it works at all. So yeah, I've been very vocal to the Game Changers producer that even when I went for the job, that was ultimately what I wanted to do. And the opportunity that the reporter actually left for, I'd gone for that opportunity as well, and she knew about that because it was internal. So once the other girl got it, I basically turned around to her and said, look, I'm not going to go anywhere if I can be the reporter on this show. And she was like, great, fine, done. But it was putting me in the hours and kind of learning the skills, because as well in television, this is a bit of advice I got given really early on, it's so true. If you can do production and you know how to produce television, then you are so much more well equipped when you get the opportunities to be on screen, because you know what's needed from the production perspective. So, and also it means you can go out and do the job, you can do both jobs without having to have anyone there with you, which is how I'd say how most of my early opportunities especially came around.
It's so interesting you saying that. It's a little bit like what we do at Pathway about lots of young people now looking at apprenticeships rather than maybe doing the graduate route and starting from the shop floor, so to speak, and working your way up.
Yeah.
And it's quite nice there that the story you're telling is quite transferable to any young person in any walk of life, if you're not going to go and do what Hannah's doing. But I think what you've said there is you had the confidence, didn't you, Hannah, to be vocal, vocalize what you wanted to do, and actually probably have the confidence to seize that opportunity. Maybe if you hadn't have had the confidence to go for it, you might have been overlooked. Who knows?
Yeah, and I will say that's not a characteristic or a skill that I think comes particularly naturally to me. I'm not one to. I always have a great self-belief that I can do it, but I don't necessarily have the kind of guts to be like knocking down on someone's door going, put me on. That's just not my nature. I've always kind of been the belief that if you do the work, people will notice and the opportunities will come, which they do to an extent, but you're the only person that's as invested in your career as you. Everyone else has got a lot of other stuff going on, so you're not their priority. Like, you're just not. It doesn't matter if they're your manager or mentor or not. They're who they're thinking about all the time. So yeah, you do have to push yourself and be confident. I mean, and then all they can say is no, and what does that get?
But that's a great lesson from this straight away. I can see this going on the best bits. Just what you said there. You know, if you're not fighting for yourself, who else is going to fight for you? You know, ultimately, you've got to start with you. Just a question here while we're going: what kind of attitude do you need to have to go up in the job ladder in journalism?
I think it's a lot of the things we just talked about. You've got to have a lot of self-belief and a lot of confidence. It is an industry that is not for the wallflowers and not for the shy ones. It's one where you've got to be vocal, you've got to put your hand up, you've got to be coming up with ideas and pitching things. I think, well, you've got to be pretty tough, to be honest. You've got to be pretty tough. And where's that question gone?
Sorry, I moved it to the answer kind of. But basically,
back to it.
Yeah, sorry. What type of attitude do you need to have to go up in the job in journalism? I
think you have to be positive. It's not an industry that rewards sort of negativity. It's very much like you've got to want to go out and create and find stories and tell stories. And you've got to be very sort of proactive and self-motivated. It's the kind of job, there aren't necessarily clear markers as to what you've done that day. It's not like you can kind of always show exactly what you've done. Some days you can, because you can be like, here's the 5-minute feature I just produced, and there you go, watch it. But quite a lot of the time it's the setting of that up and the investigating, the finding the story. So you've got to be self-motivated, and I think more than anything, you just got to love it. You really do.
Okay. And that proactivity, guys, who were on the Financial Times webinar, exactly what they were saying there as well. Hannah, you mentioned that you use your holiday days to go and do stuff. Is that sort of proactivity to go and find and look for work to get yourself up to where you want to be?
Yeah, absolutely. And quite a few of those opportunities that come about in weird ways. So there's a few on there. So there's that show jumping presenter stuff that I did online, and at times it was really tough, and I was like crying, getting ready, not wanting to go because it was just so badly produced. But I learned more than I ever could have. I think doing anything at Sky, where the standard is so high, not a lot really ever goes wrong. Whereas when you're working for a team that don't know how to make live TV, and you're there, stood there like a rabbit caught in headlight, you learn a lot. But there's also like golf presenting I did on there, so I took lots of holiday days to do that. Again, it was, none of it's in my show reel. It's never going to be like the thing I'm most proud of, but it was fun. I learned a lot of skills, and you know, get your face out there. And then the big one actually over on that diagram is TalkSport 2, which up until about 2 months ago, for 18 months, I juggled doing a breakfast show on TalkSport 2 and my full-time job at Sky. So it was a kind of sports news based, like bulletin based program, me and another presenter, but it was telling you all the information you needed and a lot of entertainment and chat around it. But I think that is the thing that I've done most recently that sort of elevated me to sort of where I've got to now. And that was a lot of hard work, and that's what it kind of takes in this industry. You've got to be willing to put in the graft. What's the saying? Like the harder I work, the luckier I get. It's so true.
That's brilliant. And let's talk about the now then, Hannah. So where are you in today's world?
I mean, physically? Or
oh, sorry, yeah. This is where I'm not so good with my questions as you might be, but in terms of your career, we've got the bottom bit there.
Yeah, no, that was really mean of me. That's what was someone like a football manager, just you and you want to die inside. Sorry. So today, like I say, I'm a reporter across a whole range of sports that come under the multi-sport umbrella at Sky. So that is NFL, netball, did some rugby recently, which I absolutely love. Women's sport, and I still do my show jumping. Honestly, it sounds so random and so niche, but it's given me some incredible opportunities. And I also do the sport on Sky News. So it looks like Sky Sports News, and it's about 5 minutes every hour on the Sky News channel where you basically do all the sport. So yes, it's a nice variety, which is something that I need in life. I can't just do the same thing. And yeah, I mean, I've stopped doing the radio now as well, so I'm a bit more well rested, and kind of found a bit of, well, had started to find a bit of a balance, and then the whole world shut down. So
yeah, okay. As it has for everyone. But okay, that's brilliant. A few questions then. So how did you get the role as production junior, and what experience do you need to apply for that role?
Okay, that is a question in two parts, and it's changed a lot. So I got the role as a production junior straight off the back of my work experience. So I got 2 weeks work experience at Sky through a contact I had. And I spent 2 weeks mostly with the rugby union department, but also doing bits on some other sports, and sort of just learning how it all works. At the end of that 2 weeks, one of the producers said to me, and this has changed so much, so I'll tell you how it's changed, go and talk to Pippa, who looks after all the runners, and tell her I sent you and that she should give you some shifts. So I kind of went up to this woman that basically was like the gatekeeper of Sky Sports careers, and kind of said, hi, told to come and speak to you because I'd like to do some running shifts. And she just went, yeah, heard good things. And this was the summer holidays, so she started putting me on the runners rota for the rest of the summer. Then I went back to uni, and I'd get a few shifts as and when I could, really, around sort of juggling third year uni work. And then once I'd finished uni, I just started working as a production junior full time. But I think did like a week's work in June, and then had nothing for a month, and had my dad going, you need to get a real job. And I was like, no, I'm going to have more shifts. I am. And he's like, no, get a job. And I was like, oh, I've got one, I think. And then sort of by the end of July, I was off. That has changed drastically, because it very much used to be a case, the whole industry used to be like this. It was all a case of who did you know that could get you in the door, and then could you prove that you should stay once you were in, which was difficult because, you know, a lot of people had those opportunities. Now a company like Sky, it's much more a formal application process for those production junior roles, and it is quite competitive. I don't know what experience you necessarily need actually when it comes to filling in that form, but any experience you've got is obviously a huge advantage, whether that's local radio, community radio, just being part of like your student television, or even just making good YouTube videos. You know what I mean? Yeah. You can do everything now very easily. Other companies and sort of other, especially more if you're looking more entertainment rather than sort of broadcasting or journalism, you can get in, I think, a little bit more with just the passion and the drive and and the willingness. But when it comes to sort of those entry level roles in the industry, it's all about enthusiasm, initiative, and just being proactive, even when the basic role is really simple. So it's very easy to just do it well and kind of have no one notice you. But if you're someone that can take initiative and to be a bit proactive and just make everyone's life easier, then that's going to get you noticed.
It's so transferable, isn't it? Because I guess you have started at the bottom of the ladder and you're climbing it. But by the sounds of it, I mean, that the boss of Sky, you were saying that you went up to her and said, I want some shifts. She said, I've heard good things. Do you reckon that was just pure attitude and the fact that you were there and you were turned on? Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't think I'd spoken a word to her. She'd probably seen me round. She'd seen me trailing the production juniors, because when the days when rugby were quiet, they were like, go and trail so-and-so that's, you know, helping out on a cricket highlight studio. And yeah, just being proactive and helpful and just getting stuck in, really. So yeah, it was all about the attitude and just the willingness. I know, you know, it was 2 weeks where I was down to do this work experience. Obviously, Monday to Friday was the hours I was told. And then on the Saturday, they had there was a sevens event in Twickenham. So I was like, oh, could I come to that? And they're like, oh no, you don't need to. It's your weekend. I was like, no. Can I come? Because it's my one opportunity to be there. So why wouldn't I? And there was I think the second week, there was a studio on the Saturday morning where they were showing some of the Tri-Nation series, which is down in Australia and New Zealand. And, you know, they were all starting work at sort of 4 o'clock in the morning. And I was like, oh, I'd really love to come in and see a studio. They're like, oh, you don't need to come in that early. Come for like 10 when we do the second game. And I was like, no, I'm going to come. I didn't go in for 4 in the morning, because I think physically I couldn't actually get there for that time. But I was there sort of by 6, half 6, and just like ready. And yeah, it was brilliant. You just have to be as proactive as possible, really, and just take opportunities, even if they're not being offered to you. If you say to someone, can I come along to that, or can I shadow you, people aren't really going to say no, because generally people want to help.
That's so interesting. And by the way, Hannah, before I go on to a few more questions, it's quite nice how fluid this is, to be fair. But are you in your sort of dream job? Because for me, it looks like you've been so driven and focused. Like, did you always have a focus towards where you're going at the moment? Is that what made you work so hard?
I've thought I've had my dream job a couple of times. Yeah. And it's weird how that evolves. So when I started presenting Game Changers, it was a kids show, and people have always said to me that I'll be good in kids TV because I'm just like a big person. I've got a lot of energy. And it was sports. It was like the two areas of sort of television that I wanted to be involved with fused as one, and I got to go out and do all this crazy stuff. And you can get away with so much when you're doing a kids show as well. The stuff you can get people to do is incredible.
It's for the kids.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, it's for the 8-year-olds, so we're going to be really cheeky. So I thought I kind of got my dream job then, and then you evolve a bit, don't you? And, you know, back end of last year, I was like getting up and doing my radio show, which I loved doing. And then I was going to interview an NFL player because the NFL were in town for the international games. And then 2 days later, I was like pitch side talking about a sport I absolutely love. And I was like, this is amazing. This is great. And then things change. It's the nature of the industry. So the radio show, for example, went away, which was not my choice. It wasn't that I wasn't doing a good job. It was just budget cuts, simple as. It was gutting, but these things happen. And that got ripped out from under me. And I was like, oh, but then at the same time, I got the opportunity to do the sport on Sky News, which actually, again, this is probably another good thing to note. That came through rejection. I applied for 2 jobs at Sky Sports News, and on both occasions didn't get them, but got really positive feedback. And there was actually nothing worse, I don't think. It'd be fine if it was like you haven't got the job because you're just not up to scratch, but we can't fault you, but someone else just had that little bit more. But it was through those rejections that I was like, okay, well, I want to be on Sky Sports News. That is still the aim, and I haven't got there yet. So to answer your question, I haven't quite got there. But I'm a step closer because I followed up. Had to have a bit of a nudge actually from someone going, you need to get in touch with them and remind them of you because blah, blah. So I did. And then lo and behold, about a month later, I kind of did my first sports bulletin on Sky News, which is hopefully a step in that direction. But you just don't know in this industry.
And we've got a photo of that, haven't we? Which we'll come on to. That's really good. So we've got 6 questions here. I'll try and get through. They're probably better than my questions. What were your least favourite topics to report on?
That is a really hard one to answer because I think if you're working in sport and getting to report and broadcast a sport, there is not a lot you can complain about, especially if it's your passion.
Yeah.
So there's not like a sport that I maybe dislike. There've been times when it's been more like certain things have been more difficult or more challenging, but there isn't a sport that I'm ever like, no. And by the nature of my job, having done a really mixed kids show in terms of the sports it covers, and now with the women's sport that I do, I literally talk about everything. So in the last week, I've talked about rugby, gymnastics, motor racing. I'll talk about football next week, then netball, probably some NFL in there as well. So I don't have a sport I don't like to report on. Sometimes I have an event and I'm like, oh, it didn't go well last time, I don't really want to do it again, or this was difficult, but never actually a sport that I'm
No. Well, you're in a pretty cool job, really, let's be honest, in terms of what you're doing. So yeah, I'm sure there are hard days, but maybe everything's quite interesting. Hillary asks, was there ever a time during your journey where you thought maybe presenting or journalism isn't for me?
All the time. It's a weird one. I think this all comes from not a sort of like lack of belief in yourself, but just the competitive nature of broadcasting and sports broadcasting, and within that being a woman in sports broadcasting, that I think sometimes it's very easy to compare yourself to what other people are doing and just going, you know, why aren't I getting that opportunity? And there's always a reason. You have to be very self-critical, and then you can identify it, or just think. I think more than anything, you just have to define what success looks like to you, because there can be that frustration sometimes, which makes you think, oh, there must be something else I want to do here, and I seriously still can't think of anything. So I think when you feel like that, you have to redefine what success likes for you, and that's taking a long time for sort of me to figure out. But I know what it is now, so I know that actually in the grand scheme, because everything always looks good from the outside as well, doesn't it? You don't always see the hard work that's going on inside. So yeah, I think that's the way you kind of have to look at things.
Is it that competitive and pressurized because it's like being a goalkeeper almost, that you can always spot the mistakes, and then if you make too many, you might not get put in goal again? Is that why it's so pressurized? Or
it's a weird thing. It's the strange thing is, it is a competitive industry, and there's lots of people that want to do it, but everyone within it is very supportive. So I've never met another female reporter or presenter that hasn't been anything but lovely. I've been quite lucky in that regard. I don't think that's necessarily the case for everyone, but most people I've come across, you always want to lift each other up and help each other out, which is great. I think as well, because everyone that works in sport and all the producers know that nothing is perfect all the time. So things go wrong when you're live, or you make a mistake. They are relatively forgiving as long as it's not absolutely catastrophic and you've just, broken the Ofcom code and libelled someone and sworn, and just it hasn't all come crashing down around you. But I think I've lost my train of thought. I always do this.
No problem.
Yeah, I think it's one of those. It's supportive, it's competitive, but in a generally quite healthy way. And I think sometimes you can be. I know I could be my own worst enemy actually in all of it, and most competitive person to myself, like be better.
Yeah, it must be. I can understand. Always looking outward potentially is always going to be a challenge, isn't it?
And that's what I was going to say actually as well. It's not necessarily people in the industry that make it hard when you get things wrong. It's people online, and
interesting.
And yeah, and it's strange. It can quite often. I always find this when I do the NFL studios at Thanksgiving, and then in January when it's the playoff time, so I do a social media segment, and it is my job to basically be on the Sky Sports NFL Twitter feed and looking at all the tweets come in, and then picking out the ones that are going to make good talking points in the studio and kind of put them to our guests in there and make a nice energetic debate. The very nature of that means I'm seeing every single tweet that is coming into Sky Sports NFL, and whilst they might not be tagging you personally, there'll be someone going, oh, what's the point in this segment, which the producer sees as well, and he says he takes offense because he's like, I like it as a segment, why don't you like my segment? We put everything into it, and yeah, you might slightly mispronounce a name because it's live TV, it happens, and then you get out, oh, what do you know? You're like, no, I do know, but I said like LeBron rather than LeBron because I was talking about LeBron James, even though it's NFL, and you just off you go. So yeah, you get thick skin to it quite quickly, or my new favourite thing, which is just to shout back at people.
Yeah, I could definitely see the resilience in you, Hannah. What could I be doing at the moment, I'm in sixth form, to give myself the best chance of this type of industry?
Read and watch everything you can. So no matter what type of journalist you want to be, whether it's political or sport or anything, you've got to read the newspapers, and a variety of newspapers, to get a range of opinions and a range of voices, and also just a different range of communicating and how to communicate. I think if it's sport you want to be in, you've just got to love your sport, just immerse yourself in it. And if you do have access to, a media course at school or at college, go for it. If you're looking at going to university, most unis now have student radio or student TV. And that for me was where I had the most fun in figuring out what I like to do and why. I just thought, student TV looks kind of fun. Went along, started doing some features and some newsy bits, and then it gives you such a great grounding of skills, and also complete freedom just to try things. So just immerse yourself in any opportunities. If you, as well, I would say that although my career looks very TV based, some of the best experiences I've got in terms of learning and development have been radio, and there's loads of community radio stations everywhere. They're always looking for volunteers, and broadcast skills are transferable across all those mediums. So if you can put together a radio package that tells a story, you can do the same in television, just with pictures over the top, because ultimately it's the words that tell the story, whether it's on radio or TV. So just get out there and then get those skills going, really, and just enjoy yourself.
That's great advice, and I think this is the same here for the Year 13 student who wants to go into presenting or TV. What can I be doing now to get experience and see what the industry is like? Anything to add there, Hannah?
Keep an eye out as well for opportunities. Keep an eye on the Work for Sky website, because quite often we do open days for students around your age. And give a little bit of an insight. And do you know what as well? I don't know where you're based, but if you are based, say, in London, when the whole lockdown thing is over, go and see shows getting recorded, because it's so interesting. Just like those panel shows, you can always get audience tickets to basically anything. And kind of, rather than watching the entertainment, watch everything that's going on around it, because I'm the worst person to go and watch a recording, because I don't pay attention. I'm like, they've got that camera, they've got that camera. Even at sport, quite often, sometimes, if it's a dull game, I'm like, they've got the back cam over there, and they've got that over there. So just go and watch shows be recorded, because you'll learn quite a lot and get an idea of what the atmosphere is like.
That's great advice. Thanks, Hannah. I've got another question here saying, what did you study at university?
I studied communication and media studies, which sounds like it feeds in perfectly to this career, which I think is a bit of a bit misleading, because it was very sociology based. It was a social sciences degree, and everyone on my course has gone to do a variety of things. So there's a lot of people in PR or any kind of communications industries, or just loads of stuff. So I did a social sciences based degree, which just sort of opened up my mind, and I just took all the opportunities that came alongside it. So studied abroad, did student TV, did this, that and the other. And I think for me personally, it was the experiences around it that were more valuable than the actual degree. But a degree is great to have if you're able to get one or have access to it.
And you were saying in your line of field that it just gave you that creativity and that space to probably go and express yourself and try things, did it?
Yeah, I think as well for me, like I needed that time at uni to sort of grow up a little bit. Those 3 years were just, I'm from the countryside. I'm from a tiny little village where there's nothing. So it's just like this eye-opening sort of life-changing experience. To get that, just get that world experience and just try things. That's a great thing. I know someone who's asked me what's student TV and who watches it, where can you watch it? So student TV is television basically produced by the Students' Union Society, or like clubs. So I went to Loughborough, and our Students' Union had LSU TV, which was just a website really. They'd stream stuff live, or they'd put videos up that they just filmed around uni, and we used to do some great stuff because it was a very sporty uni. Like, I think this rugby team would play England under-20s every year, so we'd like do that live. If you dig really deep on YouTube, you will be able to find me doing student TV. It's just something that a lot of student unions have the facilities for now, and it's a great way to get started really and just have fun.
Good stuff. And Lisa has said, where do you think is the best place to get started? Any particular opportunities? Again, I think we might have covered this, but anything else to add, Hannah?
Yeah, no, I think it's whatever is available to you in your area, because there will be something, whether that is community radio. So the summer after uni, in that 4-week period where it didn't look like I might have had a job, I went and volunteered at a community radio station near me. They always want volunteers. It's a good experience, broadcasting. Anything you can do like that is always going to stand you in good stead. Hospitals always have hospital radio as well. And yeah, it depends where you are, but there'll be something around you that you are able to get involved with.
It just sounds like there is something there for everyone. You just got to go and find it. And it just sounds like it sounds like a lot of hard work to get to where you've got to get to. It really does.
Yeah, it won't come to you.
No.
A lot of this stuff, and ask around stuff. Look on sort of like Facebook or social media for whatever your local area is. I don't know how sort of geographically diverse you all are as well on here, but for example, I know like Leeds has Leeds TV. It's like a local television station for Leeds, and they always want volunteers because they haven't got a huge budget to pay people. So if you're trying to get work experience, there'll be that. And there's a few in different cities around the country now which are relatively new.
Okay, brilliant. A bit of a different one here, Hannah, might not be for you, but do you think a law degree is a good option if you want to do news presenting? Do you think it is a good way to get into the industry, law?
I think it is a really good base, actually, if you want to do news presenting. And it's the kind of degree. So actually, a colleague of mine at Sky Sports who presents on Sky Sports News, Bella Shah, she was a trained lawyer and she worked at a law firm and then decided that she wanted to change to sports broadcasting, and she's flying and doing brilliantly. I think it's the kind of degree that if you've got a law degree, you're well set. It's like any kind of degree, isn't it? It shows that you've got the dedication to study it, you've got the commitment, you've got the self-motivation, and then just the drive. So I think, yeah, it's a great one.
Brilliant. And Callum's just asked here, what would be your best advice regarding an initial approach towards exploring any opportunities to start experience or jobs on the radio or live broadcasting?
So you're going to have to send a few emails and expect to follow up quite a lot, is what I would say. So find say you find a local community radio station that looks for volunteers. There might be a link there that if you want to volunteer, get in here, or just an admin email or something, fire them an email. Keep it relatively concise because people are busy and they don't want to read rooms. But tell them who you are and why you're interested, what you like about what they do. This is my one tip. If you're applying, and this does mean it takes more time for everywhere you apply to, but make sure you're at least familiar a little bit with their offering, of their schedule, of the content they put out. So I really like this program you do, and I think I could be really useful here, or here are my ideas for some shows that you could maybe look at doing, or these are the ways I'd like to help. So be who you are, what you want to do, throw them an idea or two, because people always love ideas. It shows you're proactive. And then I always like to end with, I look forward to hearing from you, best wishes. And then if you haven't heard from them, it's sort of a week, 10 days, you can follow up as well.
Yeah, definitely follow up. And there we can see some of your colleagues, I suppose, Hannah. What's it like working at Sky? What's it like working with some of these big names that you work with, of course?
It's a mixture between, oh my God, don't lose your mind, act cool, and just brilliant. This was the team who covered the Netball World Cup last year, and I mean there's 14 of us there because it was a beast. But you've got Di at the front, he's the sort of lead presenter on netball, who I've known for a long time from when I was a runner, and now to working alongside her, she's always a great support. And I was so starstruck when I first met her as a runner, and now I'm like, oh, we're friends.
Wow.
That's really cool. And then there's loads of ex-England netballers on there and Aussie netballers that I really had to keep cool around. But everyone, it's interesting as well, because you go, oh, there's Shani Layton, Australian netball legend, and Pamela Cookie and Tamsin Greenway and Anna Basie, who are these huge names in English netball. But ultimately, they're out of their comfort zone too, because they're netballers who have finished their careers and now broadcasting. So they want to know as much from you as them. So it becomes, and this might be something to do with it being a predominantly female team as well, but it's a lot of, no, you were great, and it's all supportive and just kind of coming together to make the best coverage you have. And actually that does tend to happen quite a lot on everything. Having worked with rugby as a reporter for the first time this year, they're a group that I know but hadn't worked with them, and it is the same there. Everyone's just really supportive because you want to put the best show on that you possibly can for the audience that are watching. So yeah, it just comes, there's a real desire just to make great telly and tell the stories that we're there to tell as well as we possibly can.
And here you are doing the NFL, Hannah. Have you had any travel, I wonder, with Sky? And my second question would be maybe what's the most exciting project you've been involved with?
I have had some trouble with Sky. So the first, this is still surreal, this, and this is a real lift-off point in my career, actually. So on that diagram earlier when I kept putting show jumping everywhere. The first time I got sent off to be a reporter for Sky on my own was to cover a show jumping event in Canada. I was like 25, I didn't really know what I was doing. I got sent to the other side of Canada as well, at the far side, to cover this event, and it was brilliant. I was so clueless, but managed to cover it, and it was absolutely brilliant. And it was a real like in at the deep end, and that comes back to what I said earlier. The fact that I'd worked in production is basically what got me that gig, because there wasn't the budget to send a reporter and a producer. I was someone that knew the sport, knew what was needed from a production perspective, and then could front it. So off I went. So that was brilliant. And through the show jumping, I've travelled quite a lot, actually, because it's quite mostly European based, but there's 3 or 4 events I cover every year, kind of going around Europe. And then NFL wise, last year I actually got to go to the Super Bowl. Wow. Which was just the biggest bucket list tick ever. I was like, I can retire now, I'm done. So I actually I've been doing a lot of NFL coverage anyway last year for the first time, and then Game Changers was still going, and I said quite flippantly about 6 months before, I thought, we should do a Super Bowl show, and the producer went, yeah, we totally should. And I was like, oh yeah, sure. And again, because of the fact that I'd done production, I didn't need a producer to go with me specifically to produce that show. So it was just me and a cameraman, off we went. And obviously by the very nature of Sky, it's very collaborative. So we also did a lot of stuff helping out the guys who were out there to cover the Super Bowl for the week. We got to put together this 23 minutes of television that I'm still so proud of. Got to go into players and go pitch side and do links on the pitch and all around Atlanta. And then I got to sit up in the stands and watch the Super Bowl, which was exciting for 2 reasons, because I'm an LA Rams fan, and it's the year they actually got to the Super Bowl, and then it proceeded to be the lowest scoring Super Bowl in history. It was one for the purists, but I was just sat there and I was like, oh my God, I'm here. I had to do 1 link at the end, but for 3 hours, just got to soak it up. Yeah, it was the most incredible experience.
That is pretty cool. I've got a question here, Hannah. Who in a TV production team should I approach if I'm asking for work experience, e.g. producers or researchers or directors or runners? What level is likely to respond? I live in London. Really good question.
Very good question. Directors, probably not. Runners and researchers, probably a little bit too lowly level. I'd say try your producers. Even better, if you can get a hold of the name of the person who is a production manager or production coordinator, they are the ones to go for, because they're the ones that staff, and they'll be concerned, or at least they'll be able to push you towards someone that's coordinating staff, to staff it at that kind of lower level. But yeah, producers are always a good place to start, because producers will just forward that email to the right person. Wow. If you know anyone, try them, because you might as well. People, the worst thing they're going to do is ignore you, and trust me, a lot will ignore you. Yeah. But yeah, I'd say aim for producers, and if you can and that's the joy of LinkedIn, isn't it? You can really stalk people. Production managers, production coordinators, they're the good ones to go for, I'd say.
Great advice. Thanks, Hannah. And we've just got a few minutes left. I've got a question here that says, what's your dream role or event to report on? And we've got you here. This is the Sky News, isn't it? This is the Sky News. And then I think it sounds to me like this is the stepping stone towards hopefully getting onto Sky Sports News. Is that what you've been saying?
Yeah, I would love to do Sky Sports News. I can't quite put my finger on what it is. I've done bits for them, but it's something about that studio. I think it's when I was sort of younger and I used to watch it, and I didn't really know it was a job until I saw it and was like, oh, you can talk about sport all day on the telly. Sign me up. Yeah. So yes, no, I'd love to do that. And on the other hand, it's quite interesting when you talk to the people, because they go to me, but why? Because what you do now is such variety, and it's all just what kind of motivates you, isn't it, really? So I love what I'm doing now. I think I'm very lucky to do what I'm doing now. In terms of like dream roles and events, I mean, like I say, last year I got to go to the Super Bowl, which was epic. I would love to be able to go and cover that in a more NFL specific capacity. as a reporter, or maybe one day, I can't even think about the possibility of presenting at Super Bowl. That just feels a bit nutty. And then last year as well, we hosted a Netball World Cup in England, and Sky were the host broadcaster, which provided the coverage for the whole world. And I was a reporter on that, and that's maybe not something I would necessarily have expected, because when I started out, netball didn't get that kind of coverage and that kind of hype. So that came out of covering the sport and loving it, and it was the hardest 10 days of work that I've ever done, but it was absolutely brilliant. So yeah, that's the thing I find in this industry. It's quite hard when people say goals and what your targets, because I find the opportunities that come my way aren't necessarily the ones I've expected, and they've always been amazing. So you just have to stay open, because you just never know what's going to come your way in this business.
No, brilliant. Hannah, I've got a couple more questions in the Q&A box, maybe true reporter style. I'll let you answer those yourself in a second. But guys, I just want to put, if you can, just in the chat box, just put maybe your one takeaway, from what you've got from this session. It's always just good to hear. I'm really interested to see if this works in terms of, hopefully, let's say you're not maybe interested in becoming a journalist or a presenter, but you've maybe taken and bottled something away for what you do want to get involved with. Because some of the stuff that I've been hearing, proactivity, hard work, enthusiastic initiative, learning to accept failure. It does seem like Hannah is so driven towards where she's going that no one's going to stop her get there. So it'd be great to hear from you guys in the chat box. And Hannah, the last couple of questions there as well.
Yeah, the career highlight one. Oh my goodness. It's a strange one, because I've been so fortunate and so lucky, and that's why I kind of love doing stuff like this, because it makes you kind of look back and really appreciate what you've done. So I got to do an interview feature with Andy Murray and Carl Edmond and take them for a drive around Wimbledon, and I was like, I have peaked. And then about a month later, I found myself in the NFL studio for the first time, and I was like, my goodness, this is it. And then a few months after that, I was at the Super Bowl, and then a couple of months ago, I was on Sky News for the first time doing the sport. So I think by my very nature, I'm always like a what's next kind of person. And I think what you have to focus on is enjoying those highs and actually reminding yourself, take a step back, look at where you are. And what I always say to myself is, if you told 18-year-old me that this is what life would look like, and that's applied to everything. So when I started presenting Game Changers, I was like, if you told 18-year-old me this, I'd have lost my mind. And then everything I've done since, I'm still like, if you told that girl, she wouldn't have believed you. So yeah, I think you just have to enjoy all the victories, especially with how the world is now. It's very just keep going, pushing, goals. And you have to remember to take a step back occasionally and just give yourself a pat on the back.
Yeah,
no matter how small that victory is.
No, thanks, Hannah. And a couple more questions I think we've got there. I'm asking if a university degree is necessary. Is it an advantage for when you go for jobs, or is it more about how you actually do on the job?
It's both. One thing I will say, the industry, like I've said it a few times, the industry has changed a lot since I started. I did my work experience at Sky 10 years ago this summer, and it's changed hugely. And then it wasn't necessary to have a university degree, but one thing I would say is that I noticed that the people that progressed quicker are perhaps the ones that have got not just a university degree, but some sort of qualification or background in pursuing it beyond just school. Whether that's getting involved in, there are apprenticeship type programs now, or diplomas or anything like that. So it does matter how you do the job, and that will stand you in good stead. But I think anything that shows you've got a level of commitment and drive helps as well.
Absolutely. And finally then, Hannah, do you have any presenters that you look up to? If not, who are your role models?
Oh, I've got a few. So presenters I look up to, I've always admired Natalie Pinkham, who presents the F1, because I love her very relaxed and approachable interview style. All her interviews always feel just like conversations, and I think that is how a good interview should be. So that's something I try and emulate. Anna Wilkes, who presents the boxing on Sky Sports as well. I think she's always so well prepped, and her delivery is always really flawless, and she can just handle big energy situation in a very cool and calm and controlled manner. Who else do I look up to? Ed Chamberlain, who used to present Super Sunday and Monday Night Football on Sky Sports, and now does the racing on ITV. So when I was a runner, I used to run on Monday Night Football. Actually, I should have mentioned this sooner. When they brought in Gary Neville, I was the runner. And Ed was the loveliest guy. And again, just for someone that was at arguably the peak of what he could do, in that he's presenting two of the biggest football shows, the biggest football shows in the country. So humble and so dedicated, and still so concerned with whether he was doing a good job. And I'd be like, mate, we're doing Super Sunday, Monday Night Football, and you're asking the runner if that was okay. I'm like, I bow. So yeah, those are a few. I mean, Gabby Logan as well, because of her adaptability to different sports. I think, like, I kind of do similar in that I cover such a variety, and the way she always knows the intricacies and everything that's going on in the sport she's talking about, and she can literally do athletics one day and then rugby the next. So I'll stop talking. But yeah, those are a few. There's a lot.
That's so cool. We must bring it to a close here, Hannah, in a second. I've just run a poll there with the guys, and 94% have enjoyed the session, 6% somewhat, so we've done well. Has this helped you? Has this inspired you in any way? 94%, guys. So obviously, Hannah, I think this has worked in terms of hearing your amazing story and linking that back into what young people are saying. Guys, I just want to read out something from Mark Jones, actually, who said, "Thanks, Hannah. You've really inspired me today to go out and search for my dream role in the industry and see if I can get some experience." That's fantastic. Ashley saying, "My takeaway, self-belief is important." Patrick saying, "Understanding the production process for a deeper understanding over what's happening, so your process will go quicker." When I enter uni, I'm going to get involved in the uni radio, from Hillary. Well done, Hannah. This is awesome. Lisa saying, "The process of getting into the industry was quite thoroughly discussed and gave me some ideas about where I should get involved, which is quite good. Be proactive, for the harder you work, the luckier you will become," from Faith.
Yeah.
Which is pretty awesome, guys. Just to recap, on Monday we're kicking off our webinars again. We've got a really cool mindfulness at work session with somebody from Prep. It's Sarah. She's quite high up, so get on that webinar. And then this time next week, Hannah, do you remember Gail Ems?
Yes, I've filmed with her loads of times.
Have
She's
you really?
Fab. Yeah, she's so fab.
Do you think she'll enjoy this?
Oh my goodness, yeah, she'll be buzzing after this. I'm just reading those comments and you going through them then, Chris. I'm so glad that this has been of any help or inspiration to all of you, because there's no point us all working our butts off getting through this industry if we can't help the next lot coming through. So and I know Chris put up my Twitter and Instagram at the beginning, and you know, if you've got any more questions, just drop me a message, because I love hearing from people that are trying to get into the industry and give any advice I can.
Brilliant, thank you, Hannah. And what we'll do, guys, we'll send through the information about Hannah on Twitter and Insta, so you can get in touch with her, give her a follow, etc., and see how she gets on in her career, obviously, and see her on that Sky Sports news desk very soon, I'm sure. But Hannah,
I'm now back in the building. We're not allowed in at the moment.
very, very true. But Hannah, thanks so much for your time. Love that you've given up your time for us, and thank you very much again.
No, thank you for having me. It's been really good fun. So thank you for all your brilliant questions.
Great, thank you. See you, everyone. Bye-bye.